Welcome back to Nikki's Scrapbooking Adventures. Today we're here with Melanie for Calling Creatives. Hi, Melanie.
Hey, Nikki, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Today we're going to talk about use it or lose it. So on Monday on Melanie's channel, A Creatively Crafted Life, we talked about why we would do the use it or lose it challenge. So we talked about some good topics, didn't we, Melanie?
We sure did. There's lots of things that we need to use in our space. I don't know either of us feel we need to lose a lot, but we definitely need to use more stuff.
That's so true. So one of the things that we talked about are some of those precious items where there's companies that have gone out of business, like October Afternoon. That's kind of what we talked about. And we're just kind of hoarding it and not wanting to use it because it's so precious. So we need to talk about some strategies on how to get over that hump and make it not so precious, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think I am one of those types of people that hoards things because they're precious. Because in my mind, the way I get around it is I'm going to put it in a scrapbook where it will live forever. So even though I'm using it, I can still see it and I can still enjoy it within the scrapbook layout pages. I will not, though, tend to put them on cards because those I will give away, and people that receive it don't realize how precious some of those items are, and we'll probably check them out.
Yep, that's so true. Like the I'm looking right now. Cocoa Vanilla Happy Days is kind of sticking out, and I love the color scheme on that collection. It is so pretty. I need to use it, get it on a page so it makes my page even more beautiful, right?
Right.
So maybe changing our mindset of it's not so precious. Like you bought it for a reason. You want to use it eventually. Let's use it sooner rather than later if that's what you're looking at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too, you can always do something like make a collage or something afterwards of your scraps that are left over from the collection if you are someone who likes to like art journal and stuff like that. So you could even have a whole page as an homage to that particular collection. I've thought about it because some of those bits are just so cute or so precious, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I thought, how fun would it be to have a journal of kind of all just random collections that you've loved over the years? That might be kind of fun. Throw a
Oh,
quote on
that'd
it
be
or something.
so fun.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing idea. The other thing we talked about was things that we really like, but we need to use, right? I really like pink. I don't have really the opportunity to use it. So what am I gonna do?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think a lot of it again comes down to a mindset, right? Where we are caught up in this idea that pink can only be on girl pages or feminine pages or that kind of thing. But I think you could probably introduce pink elsewhere, maybe not as a predominant color. And it can be a testimony to the fact that you are, you know, your son's mom and you're part of his life, and that could be significant or symbolic, I guess is the better word, of that on those pages. Something to
Or
think about.
flipping it, right? So instead of focusing in on him because he's so dang cute, maybe talk about my feelings towards that event or whatever I'm scrapbooking. So then I have an excuse to put the pink in.
There you go. There you go. It's almost like you have to trick your mind into getting past our own, our own made up rules as to what works or doesn't work for scrapbooking.
Yep, that lemon twist, man, it is getting to me.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because there are so many lemons in it for sure. So I guess the question is what are ways that you could use that collection outside of the literal meaning for it? So a summer day, just in general, right? Lemons tend to invoke the feeling of summer. You think of where lemons grow. Usually it's like a Mediterranean tropical kind of climate. So, you could use it for that, or like a trip somewhere. If you ever come to visit me in California, we grow lemon trees everywhere. So, you can use it beyond just the thought of, lemon pie or lemonade, which is what I tend to do. I tend to be literal. So
Yep. One
Definitely.
thing I did, one strategy I've used in the past, and I think I had a YouTube video about it, but I took some collections that I knew were very themed, and I Googled different titles or sayings to help me branch out. So, squeeze the day is an example for, lemons. Make lemonade out of bad situation. I don't know what the
Right.
saying is, but
Yeah.
you just Google and you'll probably find poems or sayings that are lemon themed. You add them to your collection kits so that you have an idea when you pull it out, something that you can use as a title.
Right. So it becomes symbolic of something other than just the fact that it's lemons, right?
Right.
So in the case of, I think it's if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. So, if you've gone through a rough patch or something like that, you can use it to describe or tell the story of how you've overcome something. That's a good one.
Yep. Yep. Christmas is also coming around the corner, which is really hard to believe. But we were talking about that pink. I've got a couple nieces or little girls that I think would just love to craft. And so I created some mini scrapbook things for them. Hang on, let me find it. Where did they go? Oh, they're drying because they have glitter on them. Shuck.
You went all out, all things girly.
I did. Well, so Maggie Holmes' Round Trip is very, very girly, and I
Yeah.
don't think I'll be able to use it. So instead of me using it, I was like, okay, I'll gift it to somebody. So I'll link the videos in the upper right-hand corner for people if they want to kind of take a look at that process. So this is one that I've made.
Oh, cute.
And so on the inside, I'll stuff it in these little pockets here with all this. And I made a notebook
Yeah.
with paper inside from that collection. And then I made a mini paper pad.
Oh, nice. Is it kind of like a traveler's notebook kind of thing where it's bound
Yep.
with the elastic? Okay.
Yep. So then I've got a little elastic band that'll go around the whole thing.
Cool.
And just like that. So I
That
added
is
glitter,
gorgeous.
used my pink, used my flowers. Should be very
Yeah.
proud of me.
Yeah.
Used my
Yeah.
stamps and my dies. So I used a lot of things that I don't normally pull out for a project for a gift.
And that must be fun, right? To use something a little bit different than what you normally
Yeah.
gravitate towards. Very nice. Of
So
course, you're using Maggie Holmes paper, which is always fun. So
yes, yes. And then my DIY paper pad.
yeah.
So lots of pink, not something I normally gravitate towards, but I think these little girls are really gonna like them.
Yeah. And that's a great idea, using the supplies that perhaps don't fit within your normal aesthetic or whatever, but you still love, to make gifts. It gives you the opportunity to play with those items and get your fix, so to speak, and yet still pass them along to someone who will enjoy them.
Now, I have a whole bunch of 12 by 12 left from this project. I think I might get rid of it because I've
You
used
might.
it. I
Yeah.
might get rid of it. I might try to maybe sell it at a garage sale or something because I've played with it. I'm satisfied. Do I think I'm going to pull it out? Probably not. There's a couple of sheets that I do want to use for scrapbook layouts, but
Yeah.
they're like black and white. Like there's that one that has like film strips. It looks really cool. I really want to use that sometime.
Yeah.
But do I need a whole collection for that one piece of paper? No.
Right. Right. So that actually comes to a good point about when we purchase things. I am very much a uh, complete collection kind of person, as in I tend to gravitate towards buying all of it. But Janet RTS has something that she calls the SOS method, where you just buy a sampling of a particular collection to get the look and feel for it. So if you know that a particular manufacturer or designer has a lot of colors within that specific collection that you aren't going to use, maybe we need to be a little more selective in what we purchase and not buy those items, but buy the ones that we are going to use. Now, I'm like I said, I'm guilty of this, so I'm just
I'm guilty
suggesting.
too. Clearly, I'm guilty too because that was like 10 cents a sheet and I ended up with multiple of the sheets.
Yeah, a bargain is always a big deal for me as well. I will buy stuff that I maybe wouldn't have bought, but because it's on sale, it just makes its way into my cart.
Yep. Yep. So what other things did we talk about Monday where we need to kind of come up with some strategies?
Yeah, so what about things that we like and we want to use them, but we never seem to get around to using them? So this could actually cover quite a few different areas. We've got like our tools that we talked about, right? So there's a little bit of room in there, or things like in my case, all my mixed media supplies. I love them. I like them. I never use them. And I know why. It's because it's messy and it takes time. Usually there's some sort of drying component or something in there. And when I craft, I tend to just want to sit down, get it done, and move on. And that whole mixed media adds another level that I just don't have the time for. So I need some strategies for how to deal with that.
Well, for the first thing, we're going to talk about mixed media here in a second, because that is like a whole other beast to tackle, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people love it. A lot of people don't know what to do. But for the things that, you like it, you want to use it, but don't necessarily know how to use it. One thing that I've seen people do is like the dice challenge, or, you ask your device to tell you a number 1 through 50. And you have a whole list of the items in your room. And so based on the number that's chosen, you have to use those items. So it's kind of like a challenge.
So turn it into a game. That's a great idea. I actually had that as my notes going into here, was something like a bingo card, right? I've done that at scrapbook retreats where they give you different items and you try to incorporate the 5 items on a page to either, do a diagonal or straight line. But that would be a similar concept, the dice game, or something like that, where you make it a challenge or a game. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Mm-hmm. And one place that I get a lot of those challenge game ideas is from Bash Your Stash Scrapbook Group. They just did the World Series for baseball, where, there's a team of Twisted Scissors versus Scrap and Banshees. And we were given 5 items and 1 technique to use on our page, so that you go around your room and you use your things. You don't go buy more. You just use what you have and you get points for your team. I like it. It's a lot of fun.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, and also joining a group, like a Facebook group or something like that, that offers challenges will definitely help as well. If you're a participator, I tend to be more of a lurker. So I like to take in all the information, but I don't always follow through on it. And most of that has to do with just timing. But that's a great idea.
Yep. But mixed media, I feel like, is a learned, like, it's something you need to learn and you need to want to learn it, right? Like, what goes first? What goes second? What looks good? Like, you just need practice. And so maybe instead of trying to get it on a layout, you try to do it in a notebook, like you talked about with that journal.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. And you're right, because for me, I've been scrapbooking for such a long period of time that it's almost like I don't have to think about it. It just kind of flows naturally, whereas mixed media does take a little bit more brain activity. The other thing I've thought about with mixed media, especially when we talk about doing like backgrounds and stuff like that, is that maybe I should just have a play day. Set aside a Saturday and just make a whole bunch of backgrounds. 1, you're getting the practice in, like you talked about. And then 2, I can have them ready. And so then I would have a bunch of layouts basically ready to go, so that when I do scrapbook, instead of pulling a pattern cardstock background, I can pull a mixed media layout that I've already done.
I don't think I would end up using them. This is similar to those base pages, right? I loved putting everything together, but then finding photos that match my base pages is like the worst thing ever.
That's so funny. I love doing that. And I'm always amazed when it does happen, like they do match and they do work. It's quite funny. But that's good to know that about yourself, right? If you know you won't use it, then don't, because all you've created is another problem. So that's great that you know that about yourself, right? And if it's not going to work or not something you're going to use, definitely don't go and make a whole bunch of base pages or mixed media backgrounds, because it's just going to create another problem where now you have a stack of more supplies that you aren't using. So
Yeah,
yeah.
they might need to go on my use it or lose it list, because there's a good 12 by 12 binder that's full of base pages that's never been touched.
Yeah. And that's okay too. You know, there's a lot of stigma attached with purging items. And while, you know, you could argue that there's waste involved in it, I think the biggest point, or the bigger point, or the bigger takeaway is that supply or those supplies generated some value in you making them in the first place, right? And maybe that was their purpose. In the making, that was the intent and purpose of that item, not in the end result. Now, I know you tend to be more of an end result type of person as opposed to a process generated. So that might be a little bit harder to take. But here's an example. I started doing some diamond painting, you know, the little stick the gems on. Now, okay, I don't want to offend anybody, but I kind of think they're tacky. Okay. Again, if you love them and you want to display them and do whatever, that's perfectly, that's fantastic, right? I'm not going to display them in my house. Number one, I just don't have the room, and I just don't care for that overly shiny kind of blingy look. But I love doing them, right? And so I love doing them because the repetitive nature of it is a stress reliever for me, and it doesn't require sometimes it doesn't require the mental capacity that sometimes crafting, scrapbooking, that kind of stuff does. And so it feels a particular need at a particular point in time. So I will do them, and then what? I'll just chuck them out. Like,
Wow, you spend so much time and then you just chuck them out. That's crazy.
yeah. Or the other thing I've done is I've looked for smaller ones and I'll turn them into cards and then send them to someone. Because to me, in a card, it's not quite as the same as the tacky level as, yeah. You
The
know,
ones that are like so massive. I don't like them either. Two reasons. I don't like the look. I agree with you. They don't look good like cross stitch. I'm sorry, cross stitch people. But all I see are the X's. That's all I
yes,
see. I don't see the image behind it. And same
yeah,
with the diamond paintings. The second thing I don't like about it is the repetitiveness, which is really funny that you find that's relaxing. It
yeah.
stresses me out. I can't do it. My brain.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that is so interesting. Yeah, I like, it's kind of like doing puzzles as well, like jigsaw puzzles. It's kind of that a meditative kind of reflective state. I don't know. And I've only just started doing them, but I guess my point to circle back is that sometimes it's okay just to do something for the doing of a something, not that it has to result in something permanent or long term or whatever. And if you think about those of us that make cards, like, we're not expecting those cards to stick around forever, right? Once they leave our hands and make their way into someone else's, there's no guarantees that they're going to keep them forever, or if they just end up tossed or recycled. So it's okay, right? Like, it's okay if you're not going to use those base pages. It's okay to let them go because they serve their purpose at that point in time, and that's all right.
Mhm. Yeah. What else do we need to talk about for our strategies?
Okay, so what about tools? Other tools like the silhouette, or in your case, you have the brother scan and cut. Like, how do we make it better or work better within our process? So part of my problem with a silhouette is I can't have it out all the time. I just don't have the space for it. I never was able to get the Bluetooth to work. It's an older, I think it's the first version where they did Bluetooth. So it has to be plugged into a computer because I just can't get it to work. And I'm not willing to invest any more time in trying to figure out how to get it to work. And then the other part is, like, how do I use it? I mean, I know how to use it, but you know what I mean? Oh, I just can't figure out how to make it work within my process. And I've thought of doing things too, like, okay, well, maybe I pre-cut out a bunch of backgrounds, similar to the concept of the mixed media, right? But now I've got more stuff that I got to store that I may or may not ever use, right? So is that the solution, or do I just let it go? But you spend so much money on it and it works and it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because a lot of people will tell you the first strategy is to move it closer to you. But you're
Yeah.
right, there's a space constraint. There's a space constraint.
It's huge. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's a big deal. And even when I did have it out, right now it's really tucked away because I try to keep my workspace divided into zones. So stuff that I use more often is readily available, stuff that I don't. And I tried to keep it out more readily available to encourage me to use it, but I never did it anyways. So it's like, okay, that clearly wasn't the issue. The issue is that I just really, what it comes down to is I don't want to use it. And so
Oh,
I
time to get
really
rid of
just,
it.
I really need to lose it. I think I've used it twice or maybe 3 times. That's it. Like, oh, that hurt. That hurts so badly because of how much money, you spend on it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. But at the same time, like I've got my scan and cut right next to me, right next to my desk. Do I just want a fussy cut for the rest of my life?
Well, and then you don't want to have regrets, right? Like, what happens if you
Yeah.
do get it? Because you know what happens the minute you purge it, the next day you're going to have to fussy cut out 100 items, and you'll be like, man, if I only still had my brother's scan and cut.
Right, right. The one thing, so I've been thinking about my silhouette too. I use it more now because I'm kind of doing preschool-ish with my son, and so like I can make DIY puzzle pieces with my silhouette. Like
Okay.
those kinds of projects that are outside of scrapbooking, I still use my silhouette for. The other thing I use for is print and cut. So I can get digital images and then print them off and then cut them out. I really like that about my silhouette. But it is an extra step. You really like to plan out your pages. I do not like to plan out my pages. I like to go with a flow. And so
Yeah,
maybe you start making it part of your planning process.
maybe.
You go because you're thinking ahead, like what collection am I going to use? What's the title of this? What photos are going to go with it?
Yeah, except I'm finding that process, because we all know I have the big photo issue. Is I don't know if that's working either anymore. So I don't know. Well, we'll see.
She's going to get rid of it, folks. She's going to be $100 richer next week.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it'll be gone that quick. So we'll see. We'll see. I think I need to give it a bigger chance. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I've worked it out in my brain to be a bigger deal than it is. And I think I just need to take some time, which I often don't have, is to just sit down and play with it and just say, okay, if I want to do a title, how can I do this fast? And again, just practice and make sure that it works, so that it's not that big of a deal. I think
Yeah,
that's
one thing I will say is pick some good fonts. So you can go to defont.com and get some good fonts that will actually connect to each other while you're like, if you're doing cursive. I really like cursive titles. That's just my style.
Yeah.
And so I need to like cut adventure like 50 times in white, and then I can use my mixed media to color it, right?
There
Like,
you go. There you go. Kill two birds with one stone.
right. I feel like adventure is the one word that I use like the first get to
Yeah.
go, and I've got a binder here of all these words and they're all gone. Like I just
Yeah.
never.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of what we were talking about, when things like that you like but never seem to use. If we talk more on the ephemera kind of embellishment kind of perspective, I mentioned that I had things like blank chipboard, which I actually have purged, but I do still have some like loose alphabet chipboards that are around. How do I use those items? Like, how do I put it in such a way that will be usable? I don't know. I think some of those things just aren't worth the effort to even try and make it work. I probably will just purge. But then there's other things that I do. Like, I have, like, for instance, some different acetate shapes and dyes and stuff, which I think are really cool. I struggle with using them because I don't find they layer very well, right? Because they're see-through. So then you lose part of the image. So what do I do with things like that? I don't know.
Yeah. Um, uh, Speaking of acetate, you know, those 49 and market film strips that everybody has every color in.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of those things. The other thing that I struggle to use is flare.
Okay. Yeah.
I really like Flare. Scrap and Happy Studio does those matte flare. They're
Yeah.
massive though. And I'm like, well, my clusters are just as big as the flare, I feel like. And so I got to figure out maybe changing my style on my page a couple different times to figure out how I can use flare in those film strips.
Right. Right. So again, maybe this goes back to our strategy of like the die scheme or something like that, where we try and incorporate those, you know, make a concerted effort to try and build them into our process. I joined a collaboration group. It's called Smash Your Stash. And every month we pick a different item in our scrap room to kind of focus on using in that month. And I found that is very helpful as well. Like, so that could be something, you know, if you've got items in your space that you want to use, but maybe forget about, or they get pushed aside, maybe make up a list for the month, and maybe January use flare, and month 2 you use buttons, and month 3, you know, you'll be amazed that when you pull them out and have them on your desk, that you'll find more opportunities versus if they're, you know, tucked away somewhere and you don't even think about it.
That's the other thing too, organization, right? Like go through, I've got a bin. It is another bin of shame where it's just not organized. I need to set some time down, you know, and go ahead and put everything I need in pocket that I can just flip through instead of dig, because I end up dumping the whole thing out looking for the one item I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So accessibility is part of it too. Like take some time and organize. It's still part
Yeah.
of this craft. You know, we have three
Yeah.
things I feel like that go into scrapbooking: shopping,
Yeah.
organizing, and then using.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're gonna like some better than others. And to
Shopping's the
your
easiest.
yeah, and to organizing, to your point about organizing, is it's really important that you know how you work. You know, there's some people that find it fun to, you know, dump things out in on their desk and root through. That's part of the excitement for them. Not for me. If I have to dump stuff out, it's like forget it. It's not going to happen. But again, that's just me knowing what I like and what I don't like. So yeah, and when it gets to organizing as well, just break it into small chunks. Don't feel like you have to pull everything out of your craft room and start from scratch. Take your one bin and take something within that bin and just deal with it. And you know, and over time you'll eventually get to where you need to go. But yeah, don't make it into a bigger thing than it needs to be.
Melanie is like the queen of organizing. So definitely check out her channel because that's all she does. It seems like she's like going through her
I
stands,
know.
guides, and all this stuff. So
It's ridiculous, right? I mean, I think I've been on this kick now for 2 years, but it's because I'm just doing it in smaller sections. And I have so much stuff. So much stuff. You have to, I mean, this year I actually did focus quite a bit on purging. I think I can do another round, to be honest. I can go around again and purge some more. Purging is another item or another thing that practice makes it easier. You know, like once you start purging things, it's easier to let things go. But yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. I'm not saying though that you should spend all your time organizing. I think crafting is more important than organizing, but you know, it is important to have your stuff readily available for sure.
well, that's why you're going to use it or lose it, and use some of these strategies that we've talked about on today's call. Definitely check out Melanie's video on Monday. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.